And 3, 2, 1. That'll give us a nice where we can sync it up.
Okay.
And I'll show you how that works.
All right. Well, here today, we never really even discussed who the host would be. I don't know. I hosted the last podcast we did, but it doesn't really matter. My name's Matthew.
My name is Chris.
So if you want to get used to our voices, anybody that's going to listen to this is going to know who we are.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right about that.
We're going to do a Star Trek watch-along podcast. Even though there's a million of these,
Yet
we're
another
gonna do
Trek
one.
podcast, man.
Yes. And basically just doing it to have fun. Chris and I have known each other. We are both in our late 30s. Chris and I have known each other since we were in...
Late high school, I think.
No, earlier than that. I think you would have been in 7th grade, maybe, and me in 6th.
Maybe the first time we met, but we didn't really hang out until
we
late
were
high
not
school.
really close friends until after high school. I think I played a lot of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, that's when we started really hanging out because you were playing Magic with our mutual friend Cody.
Yes.
And we all got together and definitely didn't cheat playing Magic.
No, not even once.
Not even once.
And Cody joined the Navy, and Cody was not even there yet. For some reason, we started hanging out with you to play Magic, and then you and I just started hanging out, and then Chris and
because we were the coolest people.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
obviously.
You and I lived together for several years, and purely as roommates. And
despite Matt's desires to the contrary, of course. But no, purely as roommates.
Yeah, and then we've just been friends ever since. So we're going to talk about
Star Trek. Specifically, Deep Space Nine.
Yes. Now, would you say your favorite Star Trek is The Next Generation?
I would say that, yeah. I think my single favorite piece of Star Trek media is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Because it is as close to cinematic perfection as you can get being a Hollywood film, right? But
I guess we should back up a little. Chris, I like science fiction stuff. Chris is a sci-fi head.
Yes.
This is what he primarily reads. Chris is a big book reader.
I consume a lot of science fiction.
Yes, so Chris is far more knowledgeable on the subject. So I came up with the questions that we asked. I need to pull those up here.
You can, yeah. So I've actually got them right here, so I can read it out here. So the first question that you have written here that I will tell you to ask me, and then we can discuss,
yes,
is what is science fiction and what are its defining characteristics? And we actually talked about this a little bit 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it was a good conversation, which is why it's good for a kind of an episode 0 here. And we're calling this an episode 0 because we haven't watched Deep Space. I mean, we've seen Deep Space Nine. We've all seen all of Star Trek, but we haven't watched Star Trek in a long time. The last time I watched Deep Space Nine all the way through was probably 9 years ago.
Yeah,
not 8 or 9 years ago.
At least a decade, I want to say. But I should preface this by saying words matter. In general, I don't think a word, its meaning is just something that is subjective. I think there needs to be an agreed upon. When a word has meaning, it's because, I don't know if you want to say a majority, but the society generally agrees on the meaning of that word. So because of that, I am a little torn on kind of what this word. Well, let me ask you, what is science fiction? What do you think would be, if you were to write it in the Webster's dictionary, what do you think science fiction is? And what is science fiction if you yourself were to define it for your own kind of meaning? Or is there a difference between the two to you?
I mean, for me, I'm really bad about putting the way my opinions and out into the world, not out into the world. The way I view the world is I almost expect everybody else to view the world the way I view it, right? I think that's a very human thing to do for a lot of things, but with stuff like a dictionary definition, it's like, well, I understand what that is, so that must be the dictionary definition, right? Which is not necessarily the case. So sometimes I come across as sounding like that I think I'm the smartest guy in the room. So with that as a preface, I think that my idea of what science fiction is and what the Webster's dictionary, because I'm not going to look it up. I'm not going to see what it says. I'm sure somebody will and be like, you're wrong. I'm like, yeah, okay, go put your glasses back in the case. Nobody cares. But I think, in my opinion, science fiction is fiction that is science is a driving factor in how the story is able to happen. It doesn't necessarily have to be in space, right? Because we've got The Matrix, which is fantastic science fiction, but that's set, at first you think contemporary, but actually just on Earth. But there's no space involved. It's just, weird human batteries, I guess. There's stuff like Gattaca is great science fiction, and that doesn't even really feel very science fiction-y until you kind of dig into it a little bit. But I think there has to be, without some kind of technology driven element in the story, it's just fiction. And to me, science fiction is also something that uses that technology driven element. It is not the reason the story exists, but it creates a way of viewing the story or the theme and makes you look at it in different directions because of what if this existed and then this other thing happened and this goes together because of all these, and you examine the human condition in a theoretical sense from a perspective that doesn't exist in today's world because it can't, because we don't have the whatever magic technology it is. Now, that said, science fiction is a very broad category because you've got stuff like Star Wars, which I actually argue is more fantasy than sci-fi.
Before you get too far ahead, let me interrupt you.
Oh, man.
So we did talk about this before because you're kind of stepping on my next point of what I wanted to say, or what I want to get into is like, you and I have talked about this before, and I think you and I, how we view what science fiction is like directly in line. I'll just read what I wrote here. Science fiction is a fictional media, be it literature, movies, or TV shows, in which technology plays an irreplaceable role in the narrative. If you can take a story and change aspects of the settings, then I wouldn't strictly define it as science fiction. So my next point here is Star Wars science fiction. So Star Wars is the best example. Star Wars can be the narrative and the story can be changed to you could change it to the world, to like a Tolkien world, and the story can be virtually exactly the same. The technology is not an irreplaceable part of the narrative, okay? But
I don't know, lightsabers are pretty irreplaceable. Like,
that you can make it a real sword.
I know,
that's my point.
But
there's nothing
in his lightsaber, man, iconic.
But Star Wars, if you're gonna say, in an objective sense, okay, where is a Star Wars novel gonna be put? It's gonna be put in the science fiction,
yeah, for sure,
portion of a bookstore. So it's like why is Star Wars put in the science fiction part of the bookstore?
Spaceships, technology, hyperdrives.
So yes, there is like an agreed upon aesthetic to science fiction, which would be like, I don't know, there's like large monoliths, I think is a thing that's science fiction. Like there's visual things like neon, I think for some reason is often in our minds.
I don't know about that. I mean, and it really depends, because science fiction in a literary form honestly vastly differs from science fiction visual media. I mean, I guess there's visual media, but you know, like
there's an unnatural. The aesthetic of science fiction is unnatural.
Yes, artificial. I would say, not unnatural.
Well, that's what I mean by unnatural.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because there's some things that are unnatural that are not necessarily artificial.
And so that's where you get into technology and magic. So most people would not. There is a grouping of that as they are functionally similar, but
They fill the same role in the narrative.
Yes.
Which is why fantasy and sci-fi get grouped together a lot.
But there is a thing. There's a thing that differentiates them to me is that magic in fiction has a natural value to it. It's and magic in like the ancient pagan sense is something that's supposed to bring you closer to nature, while technology brings you further from a natural existence.
So,
and I think that the aesthetic of science fiction, the differentiation between fantasy and science fiction is fantasy is about like a connection to the transcendence and the natural world and whatnot, where science fiction is a disconnection from that.
I wouldn't say necessarily a disconnection, but a domination of. The natural world no longer holds any danger for humanity in this case, because our technology has far outpaced nature's ability to really affect us. Kind of thing.
I gotcha. Well, I will say one thing is that I'm sure we agree on. Star Trek, however you want to define science fiction, Star Trek is unequivocally science fiction.
Yes, absolutely.
It is the epitome of it. The stories, most of the episodes, you cannot change the parts of you can't remove the technology and have the same narrative. The technology. There
are a few episodes where you might be able to, like Drumhead would work,
right?
In a legal drama, right? But most other episodes, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. In principle, it is science fiction. Do you want to go to the next question here?
Yeah, we can do next question. What is Star Trek? What are its defining characteristics? That's we kind of talked about that a little bit already. Just so Star Trek to me, this is more of a subjective question, I think.
Yeah.
Because you can't just be like, this is objectively Star Trek, because oh boy, will that fire up the internet.
But I will say there are parts of it that are defining objective characteristics, but you go ahead first.
So to me, Star Trek is, first of all, it has to take place in the universe of Star Trek as invented by Gene Roddenberry and inherited and changed by many, many, many people. But at its core, Star Trek is a story about humanity bettering itself, overcoming its failings, and going out and exploring the galaxy and showing that we are more than our flaws and we can do better and learn from our mistakes. That it's not hopeless, that there is a future for us, or future for everybody. And that's something that spoke to me as a kid really, really deeply. I loved that. I love how uplifting it is. And I'm not saying that I don't like dark and gritty sci-fi. Like, I love The Expanse, which is dark. It's a very dark view of the future. But Star Trek will always be like coming home. It's Star Trek is also, I think defining characteristics are, so you've got that hopefulness. You've got, it's character driven, and it makes you think about big topics, sometimes without you even realizing it. I think the best Star Trek makes you consider big, heavy topics without...
It's ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, ethical dilemmas without necessarily, I guess, preaching a solution to you. It's like, these are the things, these are what the characters chose. What do you think?
Right.
And that's something I respect in media.
Right. So I'll read what I wrote. So Star Trek is a science fiction show. What defines it and makes it unique is its ultra-humanist ethical undercurrent, which you kind of spoke on. It's lowercase liberal, so not the way people think of the word liberal nowadays. I'm more thinking like the philosophical John Locke, liberal the way our modern societies are mostly built upon that kind of what's the word I want to say? Kind of rational kind of thinking. It's so it's a lowercase liberal utopian setting. And my favorite aspect is it glorifies stoicism, especially the next generation. The next generation is rightly called competency porn. It's
Yeah.
very accurately described as that. The Enterprise is staffed by PhDs. They're all research scientists of some sort. Like Picard obviously has a doctorate in history. Worf probably in some kind of cultural studies. Crusher is a medicine research scientist. I kind of picture Riker having a joke degree like criminal justice or sports medicine or something like that. Like
I can see him having
something he doesn't actually use,
Yeah.
But they're all like, you know.
Well, they all went to Starfleet Academy, which is basically getting a 4-year degree at the minimum. Right. So they're all college graduates. That was something that was always weird about Star Trek to me is until like later on, you never saw the crew. Everybody was an officer. And it's like, okay, that's weird. And it's not until actually Deep Space Nine that you really start seeing the crew as more than just, crewmen. Like you see some of them in the movies and stuff, but you don't really see them in the shows.
Well, in my mind on the Enterprise, and maybe I'm making this up, in my mind, like even down to the people that scrub the deck are all like have their PhDs in some way.
I mean, we know that in the original series timeline that there are crewmen, that there are like in Wrath of Khan and stuff, they're like all those people that are running around in the weird armor suits, those are all crewmen. They're not actual officers, right? And we see that in the movies a lot. But that I think a lot of that is also Nick Meyer influence because he wanted it to be the Navy, the U.S. Navy in space, basically.
Well, that's kind of the dilemma with Star Trek because I think in theory, Roddenberry's theory of the show is that these would be, like I'm saying, like everyone is like a research scientist. They're all Lewis and Clark type explorers is what they're supposed to be.
And they're there because they want to be, not because they have to be.
Right. And in function, yes, Star Trek is often, they are a military force.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories, basically all the movies reflects them being more of a military force than explorers.
Pew Pew gets butts and seats, man.
You can argue that just makes more exciting fiction, but I kind of disagree. But whatever, like you say, that sells tickets. I will, something else I wrote here. Star Trek, I think, is like if Sherlock Holmes was solving cases of morality or ethics rather than simply crimes. The qualities of rationality, empiricism, and controlling your own emotions and will are what will bring humans to a higher level of being. Can speak on this briefly. This is what I don't like about New Trek. In my opinion, it rejects the ultra rationalism of the original series in TNG. It's bleak, though it's full of modern sarcasm and modern forms of speech. Instead of being an objective study of an ethical issue, kind of like what you said, where it presents both sides and the difficulty of the ethical issue, instead it's more of a preaching critique. I mean, that's basically what all of Hollywood is now, is critique and deconstruction.
Well, I mean, so Star Trek has always had some critique in it, right? But the way I have always described it to people with modern media in general is if the message that you want to convey, that you want people to think about, takes center stage and hurts the quality of the story, you are not doing your media or your message any favors.
Yeah. We don't have to get too deep into it, but did you hear that Mike Stacklasa, you know who he is?
Mike who?
Mike Stacklasa, Red Letter Media. That's a YouTube channel.
Oh, I know Red Letter Media. I just don't know their names.
Okay. And he said he has a source that says that those episodes of the new Star Trek shows average 40,000 views per episode.
That's less than a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Wow.
So I don't know. They don't make them for me, and I'm not sure who they make it for.
They're making it for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty common for a lot of showrunners these days, because people have a lot of choice in media. So when something gets greenlighted, they make the show they want to make. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. If, people are getting paid, everything's going fine, whatever, make the show you want, but just, it's not going to have as wide a spread, right? Just like if you suddenly turned Star Trek into Starship Troopers in space, Starship Troopers, I guess, is in space, whatever, but it's turned into Starship Troopers on the Enterprise, I think there would be a new audience for it, but it would also, quite rightly, put off a lot of longtime fans. When you change the mood and the theme, I don't know that I haven't seen Starfleet Academy at all. I haven't seen it all, so I cannot speak on anything beyond what I've seen in trailers. So I can't make a judgment and be like, oh, it's bad because of this, or it's good because of this. But I do know that media in general has gotten a lot less intelligent.
Yeah.
There's so much more exposition. There's so much more breaking it down into little bite-sized chunks. And I've heard that it's because a lot of the information they're getting is that people are binge watching on a second monitor while they're doing something else. And so they have to literally tell people what's going on, or they're lost. And I hate that. I hate that. But yeah, we don't need to dig into that too much, because we can talk about new Trek versus old Trek for 6 hours easily. But we're talking about Deep Space Nine here, is what we want to talk about.
So it's funny, we talked about new Trek a bit here. It's kind of different. Deep Space Nine, when it was on, a lot of people thought it was killing Star Trek.
I mean, same thing for TNG.
It's
happened every time there's been a new Trek show.
DS9 is really different.
It is very different.
Different in a way that Voyager is not different.
Yeah, Voyager is TNG again, but done not as well.
Yes. So the next question, what makes Deep Space Nine unique within Star Trek? What are its themes? I'll answer first this time. So I'm going to make an ethical allegory here. Like the train test, the train track test, where you got like one person on one train tracks, you got three people on the other train tracks, you're at the switch. Which one are you going to switch? Obviously, if you're correct in the mind, you're going to switch it so the one person dies rather than the three people, right? So here's an allegory. There's a disabled Starfleet ship with 20 people on board. One of its shuttles is sitting a few kilometers away with 2 people on board. There's a Klingon freighter with 200 people on board, including children, barreling towards the Starfleet vessel to destroy it once it's in range. The Klingon ship is only doing this because their captain is crazed. The Klingon crew is mostly unwilling and innocent. The shuttle has the ability to destroy the Klingon freighter. So you're following me? So there's like a Starfleet vessel.
Disabled ship.
Yes.
Shuttle that can blow up ship, threatening disabled ship.
The shuttle is basically in a third position, and it can destroy the Klingon freighter.
I'm guessing it can destroy either ship, is what's happening here.
So it's a decision, right?
Yeah.
So the decision is...
Because the Klingon ship's is ramming the disabled ship.
Yeah.
That's the idea?
Not necessarily, it's not ramming, it's coming within firing range.
Okay.
And the shuttle has the capability to destroy the Klingon ship before it comes into firing range.
Right.
The freighter is lower technology.
Okay.
So the way the Next Generation would solve this, Geordi would be on the shuttle. He'd remember something Worf told him about Klingon vessels having technobabble. And just at the last second, he would destroy the Klingon vessel shields to beam the crazy captain to the brig. Then afterwards, the Klingon crew would stop the ship, and there would be a moment of understanding between the Klingon crew and the Federation crew.
I mean, I'd watch that episode of TNG. It sounds good.
Yes. So, new Trek, they would figure out a way to beam through the Klingon ship's shields. They'd send a badass crew of security guards who would karate their way through the Klingons despite being half their strength. Then they'd say some extremely cringe, sarcastic line as they arrest the captain and commandeer the ship. They'd scold the Klingons for being so loyal to authority. Okay.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine, on the other hand, and this is kind of the unique part of Deep Space Nine within Star Trek and what makes it interesting to me. Deep Space Nine wouldn't take the coward's way out. They'd actually make the crew make a choice. One way or another, one of those two ships would be destroyed. Yep. The closest I can think of a TNG episode kind of getting close to that is the episode of the Crystalline Entity.
Yeah.
In which Picard goes like full, like, you can't, I don't know what the word I want to use is. Essentially, Picard is he is thinking about sacrificing all of existence because he might be treading on the rights of a single sentient being's right as an individual.
Right, yeah. Which is also ludicrous.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but that is what that, like, I don't know if you agree with my take there. DS9 will present an ethical issue and they pull the trigger. That's the difference between TNG and DS9.
Yeah, well, it's reflected in a lot of the casting and writing choices, right? I mean, DS9 is by far the darkest Star Trek show. I mean, I don't know. I hear Discovery gets pretty dark, but I think that might just be the lighting on the bridge. But with Deep Space Nine, I mean, you've got straight up like ethnic cleansing that was attempted by the Cardassians. You've got terrorists that are fighting the Cardassians that are also doing absolutely horrible things to fight the Cardassians. And Deep Space Nine's is kind of like, okay, we saw the utopia side of the Federation. The galaxy is not a utopia, and this is how utopians have to deal with the rest of the galaxy, right? Sure, Federation doesn't have any money. Quark's not going to give you anything at the bar if you don't give him something, right? Because as Federation is post-scarcity communist utopia, Ferengi are turbo capitalists,
right?
And they're, as a species, they're doing fine. And that was something that was really interesting. I mean, let's ignore the Ferengi and TNG because, but in Deep Space Nine, we did a lot of building with the Ferengi, and it was, I mean, they got some weird ideas for sure, culturally, but their species is generally respected for certain things, and they're quite powerful. And Deep Space Nine, I think, had a lot of, okay, there's a lot of different roads to the future. Which one are we going to take, right? And what are we going to do to protect our ability to get to the best future?
Yeah. It is, Deep Space Nine is not anti-Federation, okay?
No.
But it takes a much more critical view of it, or it's even willing to criticize it at all. I mean, I don't know that any other Star Trek show even really.
Well, you in TNG, there are a few things where you're like, whoa, the Federation, I don't know if it's making a good choice here. I mean, because especially towards the, I mean, that might have been DS9 because DS9's already on the air. But some of the later episodes that involve the Maquis and the Cardassians in TNG, you get some of that like, the Federation made some choices here, and
I think that is the DS9 influence because Deep Space Nine will present this. I should say it that way. It presents this critique. I don't think it necessarily stands with the critique, but it presents the critique because let's be real, the Federation is supposed to be the United States, and in Deep Space Nine, there's obvious allegories of what the Bajorans are, what
I
the
would say that the
Ferengi
Federation
are.
is supposed to be Western society as a whole, not necessarily the United States.
Well,
Roddenberry definitely saw it as the USA, but later on, I think it's very much more than that.
and I say that because the critique presented in DS9 is that the Federation is this big, encompassing force that deracinates people. There's that episode where you have that rogue. In my memory, like I said, I haven't seen this show in a decade, but I know there's that episode where they have a rogue Federation officer who's siding with the Maquis, and he says like the Federation is essentially no better than the Borg in the way they assimilate people and like the way it deracinates people. So if people don't know what the word deracinate means, you can look it up. But essentially, people lose their unique peoplehood. When once you join it, you become part of this kind of amorphous blob of
your culture is subsumed within that of something larger.
Yes, in which
and made less and unimportant, right?
And you're sold on the fact that the individual is kind of what reigns supreme, and through that kind of ideology, you kind of become alone as an individual, I guess, is how I would put it.
I mean, that's what happened to Picard. He ended up alone because, his house burned down and all his family died in a fire in the 24th century because the writers of Generations were really bad.
By the way,
sorry,
sidetrack. Who gets to decide that they get to own like a 300-acre farm? Why did they get to have? I don't know. Star Trek, you can get into the weeds on that kind of stuff.
Well, the Picards are just more equal than everybody else.
Exactly.
Is what's happening there, right? So,
other ways DS9 is unique. It's the first show that they kind of broke away from the serialization. There's still serialization. That's something else I don't like about new Star Trek. Star Trek to me should be serialized. Every episode should be its own story. That's
a serialized show is. You've got that backwards.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe you're right. Well, what I mean to say is
DS9 is the first really serialized Star Trek show where the narrative is unfolding as the show goes along. And if you pick up in the middle of season 5, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Whereas TNG, you can watch a TNG season 5 episode and be like, cool, that was Star Trek.
Now they formatted, that was the kind of the nature of television back in the day, is that they wanted for syndication. And I think like the Next Generation,
it's one of the most
and
syndicated
Deep Space Nine.
shows.
Well, they started in syndication.
Yeah.
They didn't start on like a network and weren't syndicated. They were syndicated right from the start. So the idea is you'd put on a random episode, someone could start the episode and finish it and not need to have seen any of the previous episodes.
Yep.
I think Star Trek, that's what it should be. I like that better. Deep Space Nine, obviously the first to break away from that.
And Deep Space Nine does have plenty of standalone episodes, especially early on. It's not until the Dominion War that you really start getting serialized.
Yeah. Which, from my memory, I started to like the show less and less as into the later seasons. A lot of people love the Dominion War and all that. That's kind of my least favorite part of Deep Space Nine.
I'm really excited to get to those episodes and talk about that. I'm noticing we've been talking 35 minutes now, and we've got 4 questions left, I think. I think do you feel like we've discussed Deep Space Nine and its themes pretty well here? Because I
guess we should talk in general. Do you like Deep Space Nine? Like,
yeah.
Where does it rank in your Star Trek?
So of Star Trek shows, I would put DS9 as my number 2. I
think I love also,
TNG
yes.
so much.
Yes.
I will also say that I think Deep Space Nine, if you're not looking at it through a Star Trek lens, but looking at it of just this is a TV show lens, edges edges TNG out a little bit in terms of just there's some really good writing in Deep Space Nine and some really consistently good writing and some consistently good character writing. Whereas TNG struggled to find that character writing until season 3-ish. I mean, there's some good stuff in season 2. Let's be honest, season 1 doesn't exist because season 1 TNG is...
I'm a season 2 defender, but yes, season 1 is...
Season 2
is so bad.
I like season 2 because Pulaski is so much better than Crusher.
Yes.
Like just that by herself.
We're agreeance on that.
Yeah, Pulaski's amazing.
Oh, she's just female Bones. Good. Female Bones is
Female
awesome.
Bones is more interesting than the Golden Retriever doctor, right?
Yes.
And it's not Gates McFadden's fault, right? Gates McFadden is a decent actress. They just wrote her as a boring character.
Yeah.
You know?
She
and I
loves
think
ghosts, though. She loves a good ghost.
she does love a good ghost. That is,
Yeah.
you know, back in our day, being ghosted meant something different. But yeah, Deep Space Nine is my number 2. My number 3 would be Enterprise, then TOS, then Voyager, then Lower Decks, then Strange New Worlds, and then everything else. Picard's on the bottom, even though I haven't seen Star Trek Academy. Picard was so bad it will ever be on the bottom of my list.
I think my list would be, man. See, a lot of the TNG I go back and rewatch over and over and over. Deep Space Nine I watched through once from beginning to end. Voyager I watched when it was live, and I don't think I really watched it ever since the finale.
I loved Voyager when it was on the
20
air.
years ago now.
I loved Voyager when it was on the air. I watched it. I watched like through about season 3 recently, and
you didn't like it? I've heard someone that went back and watched it.
I like it, but there are a lot of problems with that show.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Voyager, I think, had the potential to be the greatest Star Trek show, and they just flubbed it. And a lot of it had to do with like the studio, not necessarily the people who are running the show itself.
What aspect is it you don't like? Just
so, despite being far from home and with no support structure, the ship is fresh and new and happy every single episode. There's a couple episodes where they have to get resources, but they don't make that a focus because I think they're afraid to make it boring.
I think that is a restriction of the nature of the TV at that era, because the ship needed to basically look the same.
Yeah, but I think they should have done, like, you miss the opportunity of like modifying the ship and changing things around and making things and like converting decks to like farming space for food or whatever, since their replicators didn't work because of energy, but they could get in. I don't know, it was weird.
Basically you're saying it should have been Battlestar Galactica.
I think not quite, because I want them to have actually written the arc beforehand. Ron Moore, I'm looking at you. Write a storyboard before you finish your series, before you start your series, actually. But I think that some of that could have been good. I think a survival aspect to Voyager would have improved that show a lot. And I don't want people thinking I'm saying Voyager's bad. I like Voyager, but it's
funny that you're saying this. For anyone that has watched, that is a Red Letter Media fan, they just did a Voyager. And Chris, I know for a fact, has not seen this. They just did a Voyager episode, and Rich on that show said, like, almost word for word exactly what you just said, is that it would have been more interesting if like the ship got more broken down.
Yeah.
And like alien technology was like glued onto it.
Yeah,
as they went
absolutely.
on.
That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Like, we stick like 2 Kazon ships as spare warp nacelles on it, you know?
But I think maybe the showrunners might have wanted to do that, but the restriction of TV at that time.
I know a little bit of the story behind. They wanted to do stuff like that. The episode Year of Hell, which is a 2-parter, was supposed to be like a 1 or 2 season arc.
Okay.
And they're like, no, you have to do this in 1 episode or 2 episodes. And it's like, okay, well.
Because the nature of syndication, they need that ship to look the same. They need a season 2 episode to look like a season 5 episode. You can blame,
I think, UPN for all of it. I think it's
Yeah.
UPN was Voyager.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist anymore, but Voyager still exists.
So I think we would probably both agree that Deep Space Nine is the second best. I know our friend Mike would probably say the original series. I have not actually spent a ton of time watching the original series.
TOS is good in some places, but it was 1966, 67, and 68, and it shows.
Yeah.
It shows, and it's tough to put that hat on and watch it through that. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. There's a lot of really cheesy, campy stuff in there too. But that's just the nature of television of the time.
But TNG to me is, man, it's so timeless.
Yeah.
Like it does not look like it's some dated 1980s.
I would say that
me.
a lot of DS9 is fairly timeless until you start getting into the big CG battles.
I agree. Yes, you're 100% right.
But like the on-screen effects for the most part look great. The show looks fantastic. For a show that was made in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's spectacular.
I just thought of something. I don't know how I didn't think of to put this in the questions beforehand. This show is, to me, inarguably a ripoff of Babylon 5. Babylon 5 was in production before this show. The creator of Babylon 5, do you remember what his name is?
Michael J. Straczynski.
Yes. He brought the show to Paramount.
Or J. Michael Straczynski? I don't know.
It's like
JMS?
a Polish name, right?
Yeah. Straczynski is the guy's last name.
And
JMS. Something Michael Straczynski, yeah.
I believe his story. Because his story is that he shopped this to them and they stole the idea and took it to use it for Star Trek. And I'm sorry, this shows
he pitched it as a Star Trek
similar.
show. He pitched it as a Star Trek show.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I didn't remember that.
If you know anything about Babylon 5, the Minbari are totally not Vulcans.
Okay.
The Centauri are totally not Romulans.
I gotcha.
Right. So if you can see it, the Narn are totally not Klingons.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So he pitched it as a Star Trek show, I think, at first, or maybe wrote it originally as a Star Trek show and then pitched it later. When Paramount was like, no thanks.
And good old Hollywood is like, we don't need to pay you those rights.
The showrunners of Deep Space Nine had an idea for a space station show independently of Babylon 5. They did. They came up with the ideas, and JMS has come out and talked about this a little bit. And what is the prevailing theory that most people accept is that Paramount, having heard the Babylon 5 pitch, went, nah. And then these guys came up with something and they were like, oh, that sounds interesting. What if you did some of this and then some of this?
Yeah.
Because they'd heard the other pitch, right? And they were like, wow, yeah, that's a great idea. Sure, yeah, we can do that. And so the showrunners are mostly innocent of wrongdoing. And then once they started seeing the other, because Babylon 5 is not a very widely watched show, but Deep Space Nine was much more popular.
Right.
And once they started becoming aware of each other, then they're like all the studios got like into all sorts of like cross lawsuit stuff.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise
they're
me.
very similar shows. Babylon 5 is a better show. Period.
That's just interesting. See, well, we're gonna see what I think at the end of this watch through.
Yeah, because you fairly recently watched Babylon 5 like a few years ago.
If I were to say today, I would say I enjoyed Deep Space Nine more.
Okay. That's fair.
But
I mean,
we'll see. I might watch it through. I might watch DS9 again through and rethink that. Because like I said, I have negative memories of... We can get into that in a second here. But I have negative memories of different aspects of Deep Space Nine. Specifically, the Dominion War to me was really not interesting. And the Klingon stuff is brutal to me. I feel like whoever wrote the Klingon episodes in this had an axe to grind against the person who wrote the Klingon episodes in TNG.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because they're literally like retcons. All the character growth Worf has is just erased, like maliciously almost, it seems like, the way they treat his brother.
Oh, yeah, they literally erase his brother.
Yes.
Literally wipe him from existence. And, it's so funny because that episode he's like talking about wanting to die. And they're like, no, we'll just erase your personality instead. I'm like, okay, so you killed him.
Yes.
That's a dumb episode. That's one I skip usually, and I'm gonna have to watch it on this watch.
So what is your memory? Neither of us have watched this in like a decade, but do you have a favorite episode? It's kind of hard to answer, being that neither of us watched it in so long.
I don't know that I have a favorite episode that I can think of, but there are two types of episodes that I like the most, and those are the Julian and the Julian Bashir and Garrick episodes and the O'Brien episodes. I think those are my favorite. And it's not just because I want to see O'Brien suffer. I know that he must suffer. This is a rule. But
which, by the way, when we do categories, when we do each episode, we're gonna have a
like how much did O'Brien suffer in this episode? Yes,
the suffering scale.
Yeah, how many O'Briens?
Yes.
But I would say that I think it might just be a lot of they were able to do a lot more interesting things with those characters. And I think it's just because it was a side of Star Trek you hadn't seen. Like with one, we knew nothing really about the Cardassians, and Garrick, who was actually supposed to just be a one-off character, and was Andrew Robinson, I think is the actor's name. I'm probably getting that wrong.
The worst person to ask.
I'd have to look it up again, but he did such a great job that they're like, yeah, you want to come back? He was like, absolutely. Seeing him and getting that different view of the Cardassians other than like, oh, I'm just a big bad guy, fascist bad guy, was so interesting and fascinating. And, there's something about the ex-spy person who just happens to run a clothing store now, which is just kind of compelling. And then Bashir's an interesting character because if you don't know, spoiler, he's genetically engineered. So he's brilliant, he's strong, but he, for someone who is kind of portrayed as a ladies' man in the show, he is startlingly bad at people, and it is very interesting to see that character. And I see some of myself in that. Not that I think I'm a ladies' man, but I have always been told that I am an intelligent person, and I find myself being bad at people all the time. And so I identify with certain aspects of Bashir's character, right? And then, maybe I was genetically engineered to be brilliant, and that's my problem.
Yeah, Bashir is interesting in that he is, and this is a common thing, big ego, but low self-esteem.
Yeah.
Which is a more common thing than you might think. I think a lot of people that have big egos also often have low self-esteem.
Yeah, for sure. And like, so it's tough for me to have a favorite episode right now because it's been too long since I've watched it. But I would say that I think Bashir might be my favorite character, and I know that's on your list. Like who's your favorite character?
Yeah, that's our next question.
Yeah. But I think he's my favorite. I like a lot of the characters. The characters in this show are great, I think. So except for Ezri Dax.
Is that the first Dax?
No, she's the second Dax.
Okay. You're going to get me because I like the original Dax.
No, yeah. Terry Farrell as Jadzia Dax is spectacular and affected my taste in women greatly.
Yes. And from my memory, chased off the show by the executive producer in kind of a scummy way.
Yeah. Rick Berman's,
what I remember.
Rick Berman's kind of a douche.
Yes. I guess we never really got into that. So Rick Berman, the executive producer of Star Trek, basically ran Star Trek after Gene Roddenberry passed away. Was kind of Gene Roddenberry's right-hand man. And then Michael Piller ran TNG, and I think he's probably the primary reason why TNG is such a good show. Michael Piller had this loyalty that Star Trek needed to follow Roddenberry's foundation, that like there shouldn't be a lot of drama between the Starfleet officers, and that it needed to be like a show that promoted stoicism and whatnot. He was pretty loyal to Roddenberry in that aspect.
I like pretty loyalty. I'd wear shirts that's pretty loyalty.
And then, so Michael Piller ran the first few seasons of DS9 as the showrunner, and I don't remember. I know he passed away young. I don't remember if he quit DS9 or if he died while he was doing DS9.
I don't remember.
You'd think doing a podcast I'd look these things up, but you have the internet. You look it up. And,
you're sitting at a computer too. You can't just tell me to look. What am I, the producer
the
now?
The proverbial you, the listeners.
I'm the producer.
The listeners can
traffic.
So Michael Piller does the first few seasons, and then one of the writers, Ira Stephen Bear, took it over, I don't know, after the second season. And if you ever seen a picture of him, he's got blue hair. And that is when the show was already from the start more radical than TNG. And the writers wanted to take it. They always wanted to take TNG a bit more radical, more character driven. Deep Space Nine goes deep into that, especially after Ira takes the show over, which gives it its uniqueness. There's negatives to that, in my opinion, but
I like the character stuff in DS9. I think DS9 has some of the best character writing in Star Trek. They do a really good job of fleshing out these characters and the relationships between them, and the conflicts that grow out of those relationships.
Right.
Like, Miles and his wife, they hate each other. Right? I think that's what that is, right? They don't. It's just that they only ever show Keiko as like a problem for Miles, and it's really frustrating because in TNG they very clearly loved each other very much, and in DS9 it's like, yeah, they hate each other.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the differentiation between TNG and DS9.
Yeah, I guess
TNG doesn't
true.
have
It's the
Keiko
conflict.
effect.
Yeah.
TNG, no conflict between the characters. DS9,
there was conflict between some of the
all
characters in TNG once Roddenberry passed away.
Very little, though. That's the thing. Michael Piller, he would let more get in, but he was still. Ronald Moore has talked about this.
They also had to
Piller
resolve it by the end of the episode, pretty much.
Yes.
If there was character problems, they always resolved it by the end of the episode.
Piller still wanted them to follow that Roddenberry line, and I think
unless it was Captain Jellicoe, then they wanted him. They wanted everybody to hate Jellicoe, who was actually just like a competent starship captain, and the crew of the Enterprise was throwing a fit.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
that's a funny episode. But
that's one. I think that's my favorite TNG episode. Is the Chain of Command.
Chain of Command. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it's cool. I mean, it's stupid because you wouldn't send these old people on a commando mission, but it's cool for seeing the Enterprise under command of somebody else, and the whole like Cardassian scheme is really interesting. And then, of course, the whole torture scenes and stuff. Not that I'm into torture, but just the humanity on display there. And Captain Picard, the hero of our show, admitting that he was weak and he'd been broken.
Well, it is a great, and I think some organizations that I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. There's like global organizations that try to fight against the use of torture by governments, and they applaud that episode because it really shows how dehumanizing it is.
Yeah, dehumanizing, and how it doesn't really have an effect, because all torture does is makes the person being tortured say what the torturer wants them to say.
So it's like a more effective tool for brainwashing than it is to extract
I mean, if you want to be a horrible human, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So for my favorite episode, man, I could keep saying it's been like more than a decade. And I didn't write this down. I thought
it's
about
one
this.
of the Worf episodes, right?
No.
Like the one where he kills Gowron? That's your favorite episode of Star Trek, right?
We'll get into that we'll get into that in my least favorite character question. So I thought of this while you were talking. There is an episode, and I think it's rated lowly, so I'm interested when we get to it, because I think people say it's a bad episode, but the one that sticks in my mind is there's one where they crash down on a planet, and there's some kind of time warp as they're crashing, and they crash like, I want to say 200 years. By the time they hit the planet, it's like as if the ship crashed twice. It crashed at that moment, and then they split off and crashed. A second version of the shuttle crashed 200 years later. If you're following what I'm saying.
I think I remember that.
So when they get out of the ship, there is a society there, and the society is all their progeny.
Yeah.
It's all their children. Okay.
I remember this episode, yeah.
So the ethical dilemma is, when we leave this planet, it is going to erase like thousands of people's lives. Okay. But then this brings into, like, if you think about it more deeply, it brings into an ethical thing of your decisions now. If you choose not to have children, are you in a sense erasing people from existence? And then it also brings in to the question how powerful the decisions you make now are. I think a lot of people think, This is something I argue against. People think, oh, we're just space dust. I have the view that every little small decision you make echoes through time. And that episode kind of portrays that a little bit.
That's an earlier episode, I believe. So
Yeah.
we'll get to that one pretty quick.
But I think I recall people saying it's a bad episode. So maybe I'll think differently when we see it. But the episode I have seen, because so we're going to watch, there's a group, and I'll have to name them in the next podcast. There's a group that is doing rips of the Laserdisc, because the Laserdisc is actually a better quality version than the DVDs, which is really sad. There's no good quality of DS9 put out by Paramount.
It was recorded on tape too, wasn't it?
It was recorded on film like TNG. They could make 1080p versions of DS9 edits the way they did for TNG. They're not going to spend that money.
Well,
like
they didn't make their
TNG.
money back on TNG, so
no. And DS9 is just a far less popular show. I doubt DS9 does streaming numbers even remotely close to what TNG does on like Amazon and whatnot.
Well, we're going to bump those numbers up by 2.
Yeah. But I have these versions that are this group, I think it's a couple guys maybe. They're ripping the laser discs and they're doing AI upscales, and they look like really good. So because of that, I did watch the pilot episode.
Man, I didn't watch it.
I want to say a month or two ago. Well, this is before we kind of had this idea of the podcast. So, and I'm going to watch it again when we do the episode. Yeah. The pilot is really, really good. Mm-hmm. It is the best. The Voyager pilot, I remember kind of being bad. The TNG pilot is...
The Voyager pilot's not that bad.
I'll need to watch. Maybe we'll do Voyager at some point, but...
It's not great, but it's not that bad. It's way better than Farpoint. Farpoint is probably the weakest.
Farpoint is the best episode of the first season. Farpoint is a horrible episode.
Yes.
Yeah, so I really liked the pilot. That's kind of what I have on that. Next question is, who's your favorite character?
I kind of answered this already with Bashir. I think he's my favorite. It's going to change through the series, I'm pretty sure, because I tend to fall in love with characters as I watch a show, right? But I remember just really enjoying a lot of the Bashir episodes, and just his character. He's a very driven person, and he's kind. He wants to be kind all the time. The reason he's intrigued by things. That's why he's friends with Garrick. But he's also friends with Garrick because no one else is being kind to the Cardassian on the station, and so he befriends him. Right? And it's like that. I think that's cool. I think that's a good example of how to treat other human beings, or other sentients, because they're totally not humans wearing rubber masks.
I find this question hard to answer. I feel like most people's answer is going to be like O'Brien or Ducat. Those are really some of the more interesting characters in the show.
Ducat's an interesting character. He's too evil for him to be my favorite.
They kind of ruin him in the final season. Like, to me, he's very interesting, and I don't think he's evil. And then the last season, they're just he's just evil. Yeah, he's just evil.
Yeah. And that might be me just remembering the final season, where he like straight up lets himself be inhabited by demons, space demons. Sorry, not real demons. They're space demons. I
was trying to think like who did I like when I watched the show? I want to say maybe Dax.
She's a great character.
Dax is interesting. So I have this view that the soul, I don't know, I changed my mind on it, because Dax is a character that shows like, oh, the soul is separate from the body, I think, is the allegory that Dax is making. I don't necessarily
think that's true, because the whole thing with the symbiotes, she's like, oh,
the symbiote's the soul. That's my view of it. Is the symbiote is the soul, and the soul can be transferred. The body is not.
The symbiote.
The soul and the body are separate.
The memories of all the hosts, but a memory is not a soul.
Well, if you want to get into a lot of religions, that's kind of how they. Well, I don't know. We don't need to get that deep into it.
I
This
mean,
is just
we
my
can
view.
dig into this, but we're going to need a whole episode, I think, to
Yeah.
dig into this. But the way it works in the TV show, when the hosts die, the memories of that host live on in the symbiote, but Dax is not Curzon. Dax is not Jadzia. The host and the symbiote are a blended entity. And you see that when Jadzia dies, spoiler, and Ezri takes over, and Ezri is not Jadzia, and they're very clear about that. Jadzia's memories are alive in Dax, but Dax and Ezri are a new person that have old memories, a different person.
See, I don't think what you're saying disagrees with what my view is
I guess
of what
I
they're
don't know.
portraying, because the idea that the soul is separate from the body, and so if a soul goes into a new body, it is in essence a new person but the same soul.
I'd
So
argue that the symbiote and the host have separate souls, and then the minds blend together.
Yes, but I think that's the allegory to me. The way I view what they're trying to do in the story is that they're trying to portray. What I'm saying is like, symbiote's a soul.
Okay.
Soul's transferable to other bodies, because this is an old religious philosophical kind of argument that I go back and forth on, and I want to say I come onto the side that the soul is inseparable from the body, that who you are as a person is who you are, and it's kind of unchanging in that aspect. But we don't need to get that. I mean,
it's certainly an interesting it's an interesting thing to talk about, but maybe not in this podcast. We'll have to do another podcast for that one.
Mind, body, and soul to me is one thing altogether. They're separate things that make one thing.
Okay.
They're inseparable from each other. But so yeah, I don't know if I really. We'll have to see. We'll have to come back to these questions at the end.
Oh yeah, we absolutely will.
Because right now I don't think I really have a favorite character. Next question. This is one you came up with. Who is your most disliked character? I'll go first.
Yeah.
So my memory, if like I went back on my memory and I was thinking like, well, what were my initial feelings on the show, or like my vague memory of seeing it a decade ago, and I wanted to say Major Kira. Excuse me. I want to say Major Kira because my memory of her is as a character that has a bad attitude and is complaining all the time. Now, when I watched the pilot, I didn't get that, honestly.
Well, she has a reason for complaining.
She has issues, obviously. Like, it's okay for a character to have issues.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is you can portray people that have issues. Sorry. You kind of have to accept the fact that you need to portray characters that have issues, and it shouldn't just be like an automatic thing of I don't want to see them on my TV. Because she obviously, there is a reason that she has issues.
Yeah.
And when I watched the pilot, she wasn't like a big turnoff to me where I was like, oh, I don't even want to see this person on my TV kind of thing. I didn't get that at all. So, the more I thought about it, and this would make people mad, I kind of want to say my least favorite character is Worf.
Just because the way they change his character?
I hate all the Klingon stuff. The way his son is not involved. The way they literally reverse all his character gains from TNG. Like, they go back. I mean, doesn't he lose, like, his family name again or something stupid?
They just commode him, and he has to become part of the House of Martok instead.
I hate it. Makes me mad even thinking about it. And he's not like they didn't need him on the show. Right now, I'm going to say Worf. I know that's going to make people mad.
Okay.
Worf's like a top 3 TNG character for me. I love Worf on TNG, and I don't like him in DS9.
Yeah. This was like I came up with this question, and then I realized, oh, I don't know who I'm going to say.
I like them all.
I do.
If you're gonna rank them though, it doesn't mean you have.
Yeah,
doesn't
I
mean
know.
You
It doesn't have to
dislike them. If you
dislike
ranked
them,
them,
dislike them.
who would rank near the
I
bottom?
honestly,
You're gonna say Cisco, aren't you?
I'm gonna say Cisco. I'm gonna say Cisco. He's one of my least favorite captains of any Star Trek.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because I just don't like his command style. The character, and maybe it's just how Avery Brooks is portraying him, but
Well, they wanted him to be different than Picard.
no,
because
I
Picard
don't want him to be Picard.
Picard is Captain Competency. And
But Cisco seems competent.
competency is the wrong. I totally used the wrong word. Picard's Captain Ethical, Captain Moral.
Cisco is kind of like, he's like Captain Jellicoe, but if Captain Jellicoe was trying to be a dick. Because Cisco has a gentle side that he chooses not to use all the time. Like you can see that, nope, I'm just going to be blunt here.
Yeah.
And people like that, and that's fine. I don't dislike Cisco as a character, right? So like me criticizing the character of Cisco is not me going, oh, I don't like Cisco. Cisco is probably the character I like the least. It's not that I dislike him. The other one that it might be is Nog, who is
that's his son.
Quark's nephew.
Yes.
Jake's best friend. Like Jake Sisko's a cool character. I like the idea of Jake. And then the fact that he has a Ferengi best friend is really interesting too.
I feel like
Nog
I remember
is so annoying.
I feel like I remember liking their friendship.
I like their friendship. I don't like Nog that much.
Well, the Ferengi can get on the annoying side. Let's be real.
They can get on an annoying side, but man, you gotta respect their stock market picks.
You do. You have to respect it.
It's true.
The Latinum, so much.
The gold press, that was stupid. The gold is valueless. It's just the Latinum inside. It's like, but they used to like. It's like,
What's the excuse that like it can't be
the Latinum can't be replicated?
Okay.
Where the gold can, and the gold is there to protect the Latinum, which is liquid, so they can swish it and they can hear the Latinum swishing around.
Okay.
I don't even know what Latinum. It's like a liquid metal.
It's magic.
Magic, yeah. It's like dilithium. It's just magic.
Yes.
This is magic money.
Did you want to say anything on any of the characters before we move on to the last part?
I like the cast a lot, but I also remember going ugh at their lack of chemistry in the first and even the second season.
Okay.
Which is not uncommon in shows of this era. They, a lot of them met each other for the first time the day they started shooting, right? And it's hard to get over that. But
it's a lot of interesting characters. Like
yeah.
I will say, each character is. They obviously spent a lot of time thinking it when they were like, okay, how do we take these Babylon characters and make them our own? No, I'm just kidding. But but they obviously put a lot of thought. Each character is very unique and offers a different perspective. That is a valuable perspective. Like that's something you could criticize TNG as for, is like there's characters on there like Crusher that don't offer a really unique perspective. That's valuable.
Or Wesley
and
Crusher,
that's the
who
fault
exists
of the writers.
just to annoy the crew, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you here? To remind us that there were kids on board.
Like,
that's it.
Odo is a great character.
I wanted to mention Odo just because I didn't say him as my favorite, but I've always loved Odo's character, and his journey throughout the series is fascinating to me. The way he first like rejects his quote humanity and then finds it and then rejects it again, right? All for valid reasons.
Yeah.
Is great.
That's true. He is a good kind of examination of identity. That's as I'm kind of remembering things.
And he has to sleep in a bucket.
Yes.
And there's all sorts of
I'm
jokes.
surprised they approved him as a character, because it's like, hey, we're going to have this character and it's going to cost us lots of money in digital effects every season.
Well, they don't use his effects that much.
No, I do remember I can kind of visualize him going under doors. They do sometimes because it
Sometimes,
goes
but
in the bucket.
it's not even
and-
close to every episode.
No.
I'd say 3 or 4 times a season there's a lot of Odo, but most of it's just like whatever.
Just him in the makeup.
And towards the end of the series, those effects were not nearly as expensive because the computers were getting a lot better.
Yeah. That reminds me, like, Toy Story was primarily made in like 92 or 93 or something like that. And it would take them like an insane amount of hours.
Weeks to render a
To
scene.
render like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, I forget, I posted that on Facebook at one point. Like, the amount of rendering time is absurd.
Yeah, and this is the same era, so those Odo CG effects took weeks and
Something
weeks.
a gaming computer would render in 10, probably not even 10 minutes, honestly. That's such royal resolution.
I mean, the computer I'm recording on would do it in less than a minute, probably.
Yeah.
Because it's got a 5080 Super in it. And,
Yeah.
Or sorry, 4080 Super in it, and the GPUs are so powerful now.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I guess my last question was, after this watch through, do you think you'll come away with a higher opinion of the show or a lower opinion of the show?
I don't know if that's the right question, if that makes sense. I think it's not necessarily, I don't think it's going to change my ranking.
Will it match your do you think your positive memories, because you have mostly positive memories?
I have mostly positive memories. I think I will see a lot of the warts that I have forgotten, but I also think that watching it through and talking about it is going to make me appreciate it more. Because, I love Star Trek, and anytime I watch a series, if I'm watching it in order, I generally start to like that series more and more and more. Like when I was watching Voyager, I was like, I don't like Voyager that, but I'm kind of digging watching Voyager. I kind of want to watch more Voyager, and it's one of those things. I will appreciate it more as I watch it. I don't know. It's not going to change my ranking. It's not going to dethrone TNG, but I think I'm interested to see how our discussions shape our perceptions of the show. That's what I'm interested to see, because one of the reasons this podcast is a great idea is we always have great discussions about Star Trek, because Matt and I lived together for a long time, as we mentioned, and we would watch Star Trek together. We watched TV shows together all the time, and after we were done talking, or after we were done watching, we would talk about the show for almost as long as we were watching it. And like,
what one show we did a lot of that is and people are gonna laugh and think this is crazy, but Veronica Mars. I love
Veronica
that.
Mars
Show
is a great show.
Good.
It's a great show. It helps that that Matt has a huge crush on
100%
on what's her name?
Belle. What, I can't remember.
Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell. Yeah.
And she's by all accounts an awesome human being. And she's great in everything she does. We should actually watch that Good Place show at some point, because she's in that. She's the lead in that as well.
Okay.
I hear it's pretty good.
Veronica Mars is so good. We could do a Veronica Mars podcast. Yeah.
We can do
That's
that. Veronica Trek podcast. Trek across Veronica.
We'll do a half episode on the.
I don't think
DS9 and a half.
I don't think my wife has seen Veronica Mars.
Oh yeah.
I think she would love that show.
If I'm not married, if I showed my wife Veronica Mars and she didn't like it, it would crush me. It would crush me. I love that show so much.
Well, if you were married and you watched Veronica Mars, your wife would be like, "Why do you keep staring at her so much?"
That's true. This is true. On that question, I think I'm going to come away from it liking it more.
Yeah.
And knowing myself, it's because I hate everything Hollywood makes a lot nowadays. I don't watch anything new, which has been a positive in a way, because I've gone back and watched all these old films I would have never seen.
You should watch Project Hail Mary.
That's the new one.
You should watch it.
I've heard that's really good. I am going to end up seeing that.
Like, if you need somebody to go with, let me know. I will go with you, because I love that movie.
I might take you up on that. But
I might have to bring my son, because he also loves that movie, but it'll be good.
I think that I'm going to like this more. I like Star Trek. I'm on TNG. I'm one of the most uncritical people. I will watch episodes people think suck, and I'll be like, I really loved that.
Well, I mean,
Other than the first season, which is just
peak performance was one that you preached to me. You're like, it's season 2, but it's really good. And I was like, no, that is really good.
yeah.
That is really good.
That's what I mean. Like, a lot of people don't like season 2. I really like season 2. So, to get more into the weeds, season 2 is interesting in the characters. They wrote the characters kind of differently, and I kind of liked how like Picard was kind of a prickly like a-hole. Like I kind of
he
like
was that way in the first season too, but
yeah, I kind of think that was an interesting aspect of his character. Anyways, but yes, I think I'm gonna come away liking this show more. I wish we had more shows like this nowadays. Just, I don't know. A lot of people call Star Trek like comfy.
Yeah.
Kind of like some people.
Well, I mean, I said earlier,
the way a lot of people watch The Office. As
Star
like
Trek
a comfort
feels like
thing.
coming home to me.
Yeah.
You know.
And I wish we had shows like that nowadays, but luckily these things are archived, so we can still go back.
For now, until the Thought Police take it from us.
Yes, that's coming. That or the EMP. But
Matt's got tinfoil in his hat right now. You can't see it, but it's there.
I got tinfoil then underneath my laptop with the Star Trek Next Generation episodes.
Yeah,
they'll be protected.
TNG Blu-rays wrapped in tinfoil in a lead safe, right?
Yes. Yeah. Although EMP, I guess I'd have enough to watch as long as the battery lasted.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll draw pictures of the episodes and then I can do a flip book.
This is an episode slideshow.
Do a flip book of Best of Both Worlds, which we watched in a theater. That was kind of interesting.
That was awesome. That was fun. We did do that. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this for like a month since we talked about doing this podcast, and I'm really excited to start watching and discussing the episodes. So,
and then I'll try to get some production something. I don't know if we want to do an AI slop theme song or
I really don't.
I'll have to think about how much, because when I used to do
one of my strongly held opinions is I hate AI.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you on that.
Yeah.
But when I used to do the movie podcast I do with some other friends, I would do like kind of more production. I'd cut in clips of the movie that we watched.
Yeah, so
we kind of had an intro.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with this. I don't know if we're just going to throw this out raw or if you're going to play with some of that stuff. But yeah, I'm excited for it's yet another Trek podcast is what we decided, right? That's what we were calling it.
Yet another. That sounds right.
Something
with yet another Star Trek watch along or yet another Star Trek podcast.
I mean, yet another
Trek
cast, something like that. Yeah.
We're recording the first episode and we haven't finalized.
We haven't finalized the name, but this is pretty typical for both of us.
Yes.
So,
which I kind of want to keep it that way because it puts less pressure on me to like. It makes me not.
I don't care how good it sounds. This is just for people to listen to have fun. Right.
It's more to do it than to have people listen. I think. Because there's like a million Star Trek watch along podcasts.
Yeah, but none of them have us in it, and we're awesome.
There's one I really enjoyed. I'll try to remember to look them up and name them on the next episode, but there's one that's really good. But there's like 1,000 of them.
Yeah, there really are. But we hope all of you listening, all three of you listening, are enjoying this. We're looking forward to seeing you again in, I don't know, about a week. I think we're trying to do weekly-ish. Is that what we're trying to do? I don't know. I'm
set schedule. We're just gonna, we're gonna go for it.
They will come out.
Yes.
Things will come out.
Yes.
And we're gonna do one episode at a time.
Yes.
If it kills us.
Yes. It might take us 5 years. That's the thing. I'll probably get I want to finish the show. I want to watch the next episode. So I'm like, we're doing 3 episodes this week.
Yeah, that might happen. And that's okay. If we've got time for that. That's okay. I'm okay with doing that.
Yeah. And I want to try to do them in person. I think it's better to do them in person.
I like doing them in person. But yeah, so it's been an hour and 20 minutes, which is really long for a podcast. So
I don't. That's another thing we should talk about. I kind of don't mind if a discussion. Maybe there's an episode where it's not interesting, and the episode's 30 minutes long.
Yeah,
maybe there's one that's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, there's not going to be a time limit. I mean, Emissary is probably going to be a longer episode.
Yeah,
to discuss.
There's a question: do we want to do that in 2 parts?
No.
No. Okay.
I want to watch both halves. I don't want to watch one half and wait a week. What do you think? Do you think this is 1995?
Yeah,
Get out of
right.
here! Come on,
Well, they played them. They would have played them both at the same time, right? They would have
Yeah,
played them all
Emissary,
together.
they would show the whole thing, but
Yeah.
not if you were watching it in syndication.
I think when it first played on TV, I think they played part 1 and 2 one after the other.
Last
could be
time
wrong.
on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Well, I'll look that up. We'll talk about that when we watch it.
We'll talk about it.
yeah.
We'll talk about it. But yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time, I guess make it so.
That's good. I like that. That's a good.
Good. You
that's a
should
good-
like it. I
that's a
borrowed
good-
it from Captain Picard.
Yeah, the best. If
Yeah.
you're gonna borrow from someone, it should be the
Gotta
best.
take the best. I mean, or make it Cisco, I guess. I don't know.
Does Cisco have a phrase? Does he have a catchphrase? I really don't remember.
I don't think he has a friend. I think he just punches people. I
Yeah.
think that's what he
It's
does.
just violence.
It's violence.
We'll put a punching sound in.
At least he was a good dad.
Yeah, he was.
Unlike
he
Worf.
didn't punch his son. That
Unlike
I
Worf.
remember.
Worf was not a good dad.
Worf, the deadbeat dad.
Anyway, see you guys later.
All right.